Hello and welcome back to another episode of Animation Pilgrimage, where we watch every single animated movie ever in order.
Yes, in chronological order.
Which means all those requests you're making, we'll get to them. Just hold your horses. We've got a long ways to go.
Yep. This week we are tackling Pinocchio, the 1940 Disney movie. So...
Number one.
Huh?
Number one. Of two.
Yes.
Didn't two movies come out this year?
Yes.
Okay, but whatever. We'll
But
get
this
to...
one came out first. So, I wanted to start this review a little differently. I want to set the stage
Okay.
for it. So, it's 1940.
Yes.
The world is at war.
Yeah. Ooh.
The U.S. is not at war.
Mm-hmm.
They're staying out of it. But tensions are high. People don't care as much about movies when the world is in turmoil like this.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. But a few years ago, a folk artist movie director, Mr. Walt Disney, and his little team of artists put together a real humdinger of a movie called Snow White. And it was loved by pretty much everyone. Critics, general audiences, everyone fell in love with Snow White.
Curmudgeons.
Curmudgeons, everyon.
As you might refer
Your
to them
dog,
now as
your cat,
them grumps.
them
Grumpies.
Them grumpies. This sweet, quaint, folk artist tale. And it was a big success. And a real, underdog kind of story. You know, I know we talked about how Snow White really wasn't as much of an underdog story as, we're necessarily led to believe.
Uh-huh.
But in general, it kind of felt like that. Now, it's been a few years later, and there's been another animated film released. And now... My. And now Disney's making another film. Audiences go and see it, and it is Pinocchio.
How do you spell it?
No. We're still setting the stage here.
Okay.
Pinocchio. Which is not probably what most people were expecting to see. We've had 2 animated films so far as Hollywood is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them have been pretty light-hearted, comedic, basic love story kind of tales.
Mm-hmm.
And in comes Pinocchio. It's pretty drastically different from what has already been established. And even though there's only been one... think about this. It's easy to look back on Disney history now and be like, oh, yes, Pinocchio, it's just another in a great line. Well, this wasn't another in a great line of Disney movies. Disney was known for doing, shorts that were popular, yes, but, they were shorts. They aren't held in high regards. And then you had Snow White, which of course blew everyone out of the water. But that's their first movie. Their first and only movie at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And now here comes Pinocchio. And, if people were fans of the books, or of the book Pinocchio, this is something very different than what they were probably expecting. And if you were a fan of Disney's work up until that point, going to go see this probably was quite different than what you would expect. Because Pinocchio is a little darker than most Disney films. It's not quite as lighthearted.
They won't be coming back as boys!
I want my mama!
Okay.
So anyway, I just felt the need to set the stage for this one.
Okay.
A bit. Because that's something with Animation Pilgrimage that I feel is important as we go through these movies.
Context.
Is context for when these movies came out. How audiences reacted to them the first time they saw them.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very different how we look on these movies now as compared to when they came out.
Yeah, I can totally see that. So the brief summary of this movie, in case you haven't seen it, is this toy maker named Geppetto. He makes this puppet named...
Wooden puppet named Pinocchio.
Yeah, and he wishes upon a star for him to become a real boy, and then he does. He becomes a real boy because the blue fairy comes down and does it. And then he goes off on various adventures to prove that he is worthy of being a real boy, because he's still only a puppet until he proves himself. Redundancy.
Now, the Disney team had quite a hard time making this story into a movie, because Pinocchio is based on a book.
Of course.
And in the book, Pinocchio is an asshole.
Is he?
Just one of the most irredeemable, terrible like anyone who's been around children is like, oh wow, I hate children. That's Pinocchio.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Jiminy Cricket is a character they expanded on a lot in the movie. But in the book, he's only in it for like a paragraph, and it's just, Pinocchio sees a cricket and he squishes him.
What an asshole.
What an asshole.
Yeah,
because killing things is fun.
I've only seen like 2, maybe 3 different versions of Pinocchio, including this one, and the others are far more recent, and I can... Now that you say that, it's like, I'm pretty sure they pulled a lot more from the Disney version
than from the book.
Yeah, because he's a lot more charismatic.
We'll see that happen a lot as we go forward, and probably see other studios try and redo some of, especially like these fairy tale stuff, where they take a lot of inspiration from
the
what
Disney
did.
style.
Because Disney did a very good job at making sure that the emotional connection to the characters was their top priority. So, in early drafts of this film, of course, Pinocchio was more like his book counterpart. And then immediately they're like, alright, this isn't going to work. No one's going to root for Pinocchio if we keep him like this. So then they did a whole flip where Pinocchio was very sympathetic. And he was a very likable character. But then they're like, there's no bite to this film. There's nothing here because... So that's when...
He's so boring.
Yeah, he's such a wooden boy.
Oh. No. Nope. Okay, review over. We can't do this anymore.
But after that, that's when they got the idea to use Jiminy as a means to push more of the emotional aspects of this story.
Okay.
And Jiminy became a main character. They made him Pinocchio's Conscience. They made it so a lot of the, like... It's not really Pinocchio, the one learning the lessons in this. It's kind of Jiminy.
Yeah, I could see that.
So they made the main character arc. They kind of did the same thing they did with Snow White, where you have the titular main character who is not necessarily the one learning, but it's the characters around her learning a lesson. Which both does and doesn't work for this movie, but we can get to that later. But putting Jiminy Cricket as the focus character just kind of helped bring this all together.
Yeah, I can see that. Because it's very episodic, this movie, and Jiminy is there to help steer the movie along.
Right. And he kind of also, like, helps transitions, like, between episodic
because he'll be like,
acts.
Hey, hi, Pinocchio, how about you stop doing this and you go do that? And then he gets distracted by something else.
Well, and think about all the times where it's like, even though Pinocchio's the main character, think about all the times where we're seeing the situations through Jiminy Cricket's eyes rather than Pinocchio's. Like when he's watching the puppet show, you first see that as Jiminy reacting to it.
As compared to Pinocchio. You don't see how Pinocchio feels about all of it until afterwards when he's in Stromboli's wagon.
Right. Yeah. And the same thing with Pleasure Island. You get, like, the movie cuts back and forth between the two of them, but as far as, like, the emotional conflict goes, that's mostly with Jiminy trying to steer Pinocchio in the correct direction.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you feel about this movie?
I think this film is gorgeous.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite of the old Disney movies, visual-wise. That being said, this movie is probably one of Walt's weaker films. Just in terms of, like, flow. Like, the story just doesn't flow very naturally, and the characters aren't terribly compelling compared to, you know, like I find Snow White and Grumpy and like that whole dynamic very compelling. You know, it's like we've got some movies coming up that's like very compelling. Pinocchio just doesn't feel like it's got that same heart in it.
Yeah, it feels, I know they were trying not to do this, but it feels very, very lighthearted to me. And sure, there's like really scary scenes in it.
There's some really scary scenes in this movie.
They don't really scare me.
Yeah?
No. And they didn't even necessarily scare me as a kid either, because this is another one of all of the Disney films pretty much that I grew up watching. There's, like, our family had most of them. Definitely missed out on a few, but like this is one of those that we owned, but I just never watched that often because I always found it just to be boring more than anything else. And rewatching it again now, I still mostly feel that. It's like there's interesting bits here and there, and wow, I realized that Jiminy's a real womanizing little crap, but
Well, and see, and Jiminy was supposed to be very much like a... he's essentially like what the genie is in Aladdin. Like, if you take context, like, back to that time period, he's like a wisecracking sidekick, like, funny man kind of guy.
Yeah. It's just...
It hasn't aged so that necessarily feels the same.
Yeah, I was like, I guess... I don't know. I don't feel that as much.
I mean, I'm telling you though, like that was the intention.
Oh, okay.
I'm not making guesswork. I'm telling you, like that was the intent. Is that he was more of a like pop, like slinging out those culturisms and such.
That's so strange. But I mean, it's hard for me to grasp. It's hard for me to grasp because
1940s.
Yeah, that was 1940s, and we weren't born until, you know, like much later.
Right. But anyway, I mean, this movie is definitely a visual marvel.
The
like,
underwater effects.
God, this. Like Snow White's beautiful, but like this is just like
The
knocked it out of the park.
Animation, especially on like the final segment with all of the underwater effects and just like the water,
the sea foam and stuff when Monstro's like,
and
raging
then like
around.
when they're getting washed up on the beach. So you know how last episode we were like complimenting Gulliver's Travels, specifically the first scene
the water effects.
With the water effects. Those look fine. These look amazing.
You know, you can actually find quotes from, I think it's Frank Thomas, who says, like, we try to make that water as realistic looking as possible. They, like, it's something that, like, all of them are really proud about. They're all like, you know, like, we made that water look like water. I'm like, oh.
Just beating your competitor into the dirt. The one good thing they had in their movie. And you're like, nope. We did better. We also had
Gotcha.
a funny sidekick character who's actually funny.
Yeah. Yeah, Jiminy's way more tolerable than Gabby.
Oh, yeah.
When you put them all in perspective, it's
When you
like,
put 'em in
wow,
perspective.
Pinocchio's so good.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm totally fine with Jiminy showing up forever. And one thing you will recognize from this movie, even if you didn't realize it, is the When You Wish Upon a Star song. When you wish upon a star. Like, that's from this.
Even if you haven't seen it.
Even if you haven't seen it, I'm sure you've heard it.
Considering
Or-
it's the Disney theme song.
Yeah.
So, this movie actually didn't make back its money.
Oh,
When it
really?
first came out, no. It took until re-releases, think in the mid-40s or maybe even up till 1950 before they actually made their money back
Wow.
on Pinocchio. They had a huge budget on this movie. Going into a little Disney history here, the Disney team, after the success of Snow White, they didn't really know what to do next. Like, Walt obviously had plans. He was really gung-ho about Pinocchio, and then he was really gung-ho about what was, at the time, called the concert feature, and Bambi. And quite honestly, the concert film and and Bambi were his two big priorities.
So this one he didn't care as much about.
Right.
He's more so,
kinda
let
took
you
a-
guys do this.
Yes, Pinocchio kind of took a back seat for Walt as the company was starting to just grow and get bigger and bigger. And he let other people handle the story department, and then they would bring it back to him and review it with him, and he'd be like, you know, hey, this is working, or hey, this isn't. And as far as Pinocchio goes, he was really never completely satisfied with the story. He just kind of let them do what he thought was best, but he was very particular about how the movie looked. And he demanded perfection. He demanded it be better looking than Snow White. And, you know, and that's why, you know, like, there's all these beautiful effects on the cells where they figured out how to get, like, the highlights on the hair. And
Let's not even talk about, like, the 2-minute continuous shot.
I mean, it's not that long, but it's a long,
Really
shot,
long.
multiplane camera shot, and like
It
this
just
has gone
keeps
down in
going.
history as like one of the best animated shots, especially on the multiplane camera of all time. It's like up there with that, with the Beauty and the Beast sweeping ballroom shot, like. Yeah, and I'm sure I'm gonna have video footage of this playing as we're talking about this, but just it going from the top, like you're seeing the skyline of this little town, and you see like the town lighten up as like it's day and people are coming out and doing their daily routines, and
And
it
just, like,
swoops down
traveling
in and it
through.
travels through the town and then ends on Geppetto's shop. Like, that shot is insane. I don't even.
How did they figure that out? It's crazy.
But I mean, and that's not the only thing. You know, it's like you've got beautiful multiplane camera work, you've got beautiful lighting effects work going on, but just the animation in general is a huge step up from Snow White. You know, we're looking at characters that are still being rotoscoped, but they don't feel like they're being rotoscoped anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like any of these characters felt rotoscoped.
And yet they were rotoscoping all the way up until like Sleeping Beauty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, they did a good job. It's like,
Disney team got really, really good at doing this.
yeah, they did. I would say like the only character, maybe 2 characters that I might be able to pick out some points where it felt rotoscoped is like maybe a scene with Geppetto and Stromboli.
I mean, what really makes the difference there is you have very
Human.
few cartoony characters in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that helps hide the fact that
the characters...
the art direction in general is just more cohesive.
Yes.
So that when,
Yes.
like, and you can even feel it, when characters like Jiminy Cricket comes on stage, or when Honest John and Gideon come on stage, you're like, these guys are cartoon characters.
Everyone else feels like they fit in the same universe. These guys don't quite fit here, type of thing. And I mean, like, when we... Like, I'm not going to just keep bashing on Gulliver's Travels, because there's a big disconnect there. But even if you look at Snow White, yeah, there are the cartoon dwarves, and then there's the humans. And they feel very different. But they're getting better in this movie.
Yeah.
The art direction is becoming more cohesive.
Yeah. And...
For character design, specifically.
Yeah. And we've got 3 old men to talk about here.
Okay.
Who worked on the character Pinocchio. And, like, there's so many great animated moments done by these 3 guys here. And it really, I think, kind of shaped their careers going forward in Disney. Milt Kahl, Frank Thomas, and Ollie Johnston. All 3 of these guys worked on Pinocchio. And I just want to talk about a few shots in a few bits of animation in particular.
Okay.
The scene where Pinocchio is... I think he's talking to Stromboli. I don't remember the exact context of the scene, but he's talking to him, and while he's talking to him, he's like twirling his shorts in his finger.
Yeah. Yes.
That is such a nice bit of character animation. Just showing a little personality through mannerisms. I believe that one was animated by Frank Thomas. And I'll double check these to make sure I'm correct. I believe that was animated by Frank Thomas.
Wrong.
No. And then the next scene I want to talk about is one where Stromboli is taking the wagon away and Pinocchio's rocking in the cage.
Oh god, that shot is insane as well. There's a lot of crazy shots. Like, wow.
I mean, just like an audience who's unfamiliar with how animation works can look at it and just be like, oh yeah, that's what's going on right now. Poor Pinocchio. But like, if an animator watches that, you're like, holy shit, how did they do that? Oh, what? That is insane. Just think of the logistics here. Like, you've got a cage that is swinging back and forth.
But it has to keep its size continuity. Like, everything has to be precise so that the character inside can move around while this thing is moving around.
You have Pinocchio who is trying to react to stuff. Like, he's trying to move around, but he's also being thrown around by the cage and by the wagon moving back and forth.
Yeah, it's like...
And grabbing at bars and then, like, falling backward and falling
moving
forward.
Separate from the cage, which is moving separate from the background. And then I think there's, like, also puppets, like, swinging around in this scene as well. It's like, this is an insane shot. And, like, it's panning out and in and stuff. It's like... Oh my god!
and you know, I'm gonna take a little bit of the thunder out of this, although I don't think it really does. I think it's really smart how they did this, is they built a cage that looked like Pinocchio's cage, and they filmed it swinging back and forth, and then traced that onto cells, and then, and this one I think was Ollie Johnson, or maybe Frank and Ollie worked on this together, and then they animated Pinocchio inside that trace of those drawings.
I mean, how else would you do that?
I mean, it's just brilliant. Like, that's how you use tools effectively. Like, that's so smart. Ugh, so good. But anyway, I don't want to leave Milt Kahl out, so bless Milt. So the last shot I want to talk about is he tackled quite a few of the shots during Pleasure Island.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some great shots where Pinocchio is reacting to Lampwick turning into a donkey.
Mm-hmm.
And just being like a bad kid in general. Like, there's the shot where he's breathing in a huge breath of cigarette or cigar.
I don't even know the correct terminology.
Some dank.
Some hot
cigs.
takes.
I don't know. Anyway,
we're up with the drug lingo, yo.
He breathes it in, and it's just like you see every single key pose perfectly as Pinocchio transitions between each face and slowly gets more and more sick from the cigarette or cigar smoke he just breathed in. And then I think Milt was also responsible for a lot of the really funny like Lampwick turns and like his tail comes out and then Pinocchio's like and throws away his cigar.
And like dumps out the beer or whatever.
Like pushes it away.
Yeah, that's some good stuff.
It's really like some of the best comedy.
There's some
and the fact that comedy comes in right before it gets really intense with Lampwick turning into the donkey is great.
I want to talk about that.
Uh-huh.
The specifically the kids turning into donkeys thing.
Okay, yeah.
So that's supposed to be scary?
Yeah, it's scary.
I don't know. I guess I might just be a strange person, but I always kind of found the idea of people turning into animals fascinating, more so than like, oh God, they're turning into animals. How terrifying!
It's not the subject matter; it's how it's presented.
Okay, I guess yeah.
Because turning into animals can be fun. Of course it can be fun. Who wouldn't want to turn into an animal? But it's the way it's presented. I mean, you've got these kids obviously on this island doing a whole bunch of like really shitty things in this dark atmosphere that's really creepy. Like they've got like clown eyes watching these kids and like these dark mysterious figures all around the island. And then when the dust is kind of settled and, like, it gets really empty, kind of quiet, it's only Lampwick and Pinocchio in this billiard ball room together, and, you know, and they're just hanging out, and there's, like, the way the shots are all composed and stuff, and then, like, obviously the music gets really intense when Lampwick's turning into a donkey, like, it obviously doesn't scare me now, but it's still, like, holy shit.
Okay.
And you know, acting of course is reacting, and the way Pinocchio's face is when Lampwick's like beating against his chest with his hooves and Pinocchio's just like, oh my god. And then, you know, Jiminy and Pinocchio running away as fast as possible.
Nope.
And let's not forget, like, the poor boys who, you know, Jiminy sees get brought in as donkeys, and he's like, what's going on? What's happening here? And then they're like, take this one back. This one can talk. And then he throws him into a pit with all these other boys, and they're like, we want our mamas. Like, that's scary. For the very least, like, creepy.
Okay, I'll give you that.
It's scary to a child.
Yeah, I'll sure.
And just creepy otherwise. And I will say, this movie has, like, 2 speeds. Mm-hmm. It is either, like, whimsical...
Hi, diddly-dee, for me.
Yeah.
It's either that.
Whimsical or, like, you know, Geppetto, like, playing with Pinocchio around his house and, you know, like, dancing with the cat and stuff. Like, there's your typical whimsy stuff. Or it is a 10 full speed ahead. Shit is scary and
intense.
Holy shit, we're all gonna die.
This whale is going to kill you.
Yeah, like the whole last, 5 minutes of the movie is just
butt clench.
And then the movie resolves in like a minute.
Yeah, it's over real fast. It's like, oh no, you're dead. Go back to sleep. Oh wait, no, you're alive. Hey, everybody's happy. Done.
Well, then, when you wish upon a star,
makes no difference who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a lot I really respect and really enjoy about this movie, but the way it's structured, like the episodic nature of it, and just like the characters in general are...
Nothing really stands out to you like,
right,
that guy, that one character makes me want to watch this movie 500 times or something like that.
Yeah, like it just doesn't have the polish on it, story and character-wise, like Snow White had. And I mentioned earlier, like, them making Jiminy more of the character who's learning something rather than it being Pinocchio. Both worked and didn't work in their favor. Because Pinocchio's just kind of hard to relate to. Although I do really, really like this scene where Pinocchio, through Deus Ex Machina, Blue Fairy coming in to intervene, gives Pinocchio a letter saying Geppetto's gone off to go find him and he's in Monstro the Whale. But Pinocchio's like, well, we've got to save him. And then they get up to the cliff and Jiminy's like, well, I don't know about this, Pinocchio. And Pinocchio's just like, okay, bye, Jiminy. And he like shakes his little hand and then he just jumps off the cliff. And he's ready to go save his dad.
Yep.
Like it's a really nice little scene. It's just like, well, bye then.
It's like, if you're not prepared, I'm going.
Bye. And there's some really nice acting done by who I think I don't remember the kid's name, but it is a child actor who plays Pinocchio, and I think he was a child actor at the time.
It wouldn't surprise me. They definitely sound like a little kid.
Yeah.
As compared to some adult pretending to be a child or something, which you get most of the time today.
Right. And like I said, really good acting, considering it's a little kid.
Yeah. It's like, sure, he shouts all of his lines, but kids always do that.
I mean, that's the thing, though. It doesn't feel like a kid trying to act. It feels just like a kid being a kid.
Oh, yeah. It's like, that's exactly what you'd expect a kid to be doing.
Especially a kid who's, like, born yesterday. Like Pinocchio.
Yeah. I guess
I'm going to school!
One scene I really actually do kind of enjoy is when they're on the carriage going to Pleasure Island, and he first is talking to Lampwick, and he just keeps trying to say, like, point out this ticket that he got from Honest John. He's just like, Honest John! And the Lampwick just completely cuts him off, gives him no quarter, just keeps talking about his own bullshit.
Yeah.
And just like constant throughout the entire scene. I really enjoy it. And the thing is, Pinocchio doesn't notice or care. Like, he doesn't realize that this other person gives no shits.
Pinocchio's
it's so
like
genuinely charming.
I know, like Pinocchio's really, really charming. Like, story-wise, it doesn't work because we're not, like, connected to whatever Pinocchio's doing, but it makes him really fun to watch because he's just an idiot. Which just reminds me of Kingdom Hearts.
Honestly, yes, I was thinking about the same thing.
I don't want to go on a tangent about Kingdom Hearts.
Let's do just a very brief tangent.
Okay.
Rewatching this movie, it makes perfect sense why they chose for Jiminy Cricket to be your constant companion in the Kingdom Hearts series. Because Sora is
that charming idiot
who doesn't really learn and is just a do-gooder, wants to be a good guy,
I mean,
and is super naive.
if Sora was in that same situation, he'd be like, "Goodbye, Jiminy," and jump off a cliff.
Goodbye, Jiminy. I gotta go save my friends.
I gotta go save Riku and Kairi. And it also just like makes me appreciate some of the lines they have in Kingdom Hearts that Pinocchio says. Like that you don't like.
I'm
like
sorry,
it's easy
Jiminy.
to forget.
I'm dying. And then his nose
I'm done for.
And then his nose grows like,
Oh, I guess I'm okay.
I freaking love that line. I mean, obviously this has nothing to do with the movie,
With
but
Pinocchio, but forgive us, we're Kingdom Hearts fans.
surprise, surprise, we really like Disney.
So, but anyway, back to Pinocchio. So yeah, like in the studio itself, Walt was obviously more focused on Bambi and what would be known as Fantasia, and Fantasia comes out
At the end of this year.
at the end of 1940. So Disney released 2 films that year. But they had a heck of a time getting this movie to work, and it was way over budget, and and after the success of Snow White, things at the studio were crazy. People were getting hired but not knowing what they needed to do, and
Oh dear. Rapid expansion.
yeah, I mean, this could have been like a make it or break it time for the studio, and
Somehow they made it through.
Yeah, and like I said, Pinocchio didn't make its money back when it was first released. Like, that's scary.
Yeah, that is.
But they also had Fantasia come out this year, and we'll talk about that later.
Yes, we will.
Yes, we will. But yeah, I love a lot of things about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not one of my favorites.
Yeah. I
know I've been talking a lot this review, but...
Well, that's fine. I honestly, overall, I'm not sure how to feel about this movie. It's like, I understand and appreciate that a lot of this is very important and stuff, but at the same time, this movie just never connected with me all that much. It exists, and it's not like I hate it, but I don't really like it a whole lot either.
It just doesn't do much for you.
It does very little for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I think a lot of people... Well, actually, I think a lot of people either feel one way or the other about this movie. They're like, either it's the best thing ever, or it's really not that great.
So, here I am.
Stuck in the middle.
Stuck in the middle with you. Except not with you. You're more in like the one side.
Yeah, I'm more of the like, I really like this movie.
Okay. So, would you recommend people see this?
Oh, hell yeah! Like, I know a lot of people haven't seen this because it's one of those older Disney movies that's like kind of weird.
It's not Snow White, so why have you... There's no reason to see it. See the first one and then... Whatever.
I mean, it's so bizarre coming from Disney. It's darker, but also just as lighthearted. Like, tonally, it's got, like, a whole bunch of things going on. There's some great moments in this movie that you've probably seen online, because everyone's, likes making those, top 10 what the fuck moments in Disney movies, or whatever lists are out there now.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've probably seen, the parts of this movie that we've talked about, but still, watch it.
It's probably worth a watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The music's better in this movie than it is in Snow White. The art is better. The characters aren't, but they're Disney staples that, as a culture you are familiar with, so...
They're not worse.
Yeah, they're not worse. They're just, not fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it's enjoyable and has some, really great emotional moments and funny moments. So,
yeah.
I'd say give it a watch.
Okay. All right.
So next on our list is Fantasia.
And yeah, we'll see you back here for that one.
Next week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.